Bit of backdoor action. Welcome back to Have a Crack. Today I'm going to show you the back end of the 76, all the install, the customization that I've done in here. Almost all of it is Aussie made. Almost all of it I had an issue with, but every single bit of it had awesome customer service when I present it to the companies. Let me show you what I've done. Before we get into this, I think it's really important to recognise that the 76 is a bloody small car. It might look like fairly chunky from the outside, but from the inside, it's a fairly small vehicle. So if you've got a small vehicle and you're trying to make as much use of the space you have available, you're going to want to see this. Many moons ago when I was in the army, I was a DNS instructor, a driving and servicing instructor of M113A1, armoured personnel carriers, armoured fighting vehicles. And we would carry like 9 guys in the back of these vehicles, so storage was always incredibly important. There was always a place to put something, and something always had a place. And you always knew where things were. So I've taken that approach of knowing where everything is in the dark and applied it to this vehicle. And this is what I've come up with. From the outside, it's fairly obvious. I've got the solar screens installed. These things are really good for insulating the vehicle. If you don't know what they are, most people who own a 70 series are going to know what these things are, but it insulates the vehicle really well. I get nice cool temperatures inside the vehicle through the summer as well. The downside of these things is the bloody suction caps are always falling off. As soon as the weather warms up, they're falling off, but I found a way to keep them on. First way that the company, I guess the first company I'll talk to you about is KOn. If you've been into four-wheel driving, this wonderful expensive accessory sport that we all play in, you probably know what KOn is. It's an Aussie company. I had some issues with them. I contacted them and their customer service was just fantastic. The things that are holding on the solar screens are these molle panels here. Molle is, it stands for some bloody American friggin' load carrying equipment thing from the army. Basically you can strap pouches and stuff onto it, and that's the first tip that I've got for the 76 series. Use a bit of vertical space, especially on the side here. You've got a snake bite kit on this side, as a first aid kit over this side. Just going to move the vehicle real quick because the sun's coming straight into the back and it's glaring at you can't see anything. That should be better. Where were we? Solar screens were covered. The molle panels on the sides, they give us a bit more elevation in storage. The solar screens are also held on by those molle panels there. They've got a nice security, if you like, for the molle panels. I know of the solar screens on this side of the vehicle, I've had 2 that are always coming off the suction caps, but you wouldn't know it because the molle panels just keep them there on the side. Works really well. Before this vehicle I had a Pajero, the wanker, and I had the KOn rack and the KOn light cargo barrier, or the pet cage or pet barrier or something it's called, on the Pajero, and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It's good for storing nice lightweight things like towels, blankets. Up here I use this for the walls on my awning, but we'll talk about that in another video. But it holds it all up there just fine. The cage at the back there, it's not a cargo carrier, a cargo cage as such. It's not a cargo barrier, but it will stop things in the event of a rollover or an accident. It's going to stop things going forward and coming into the cabin space. But at this point, the only downside of these is that it screws onto the headrests. So if I need to get to the back of the drawer system, I need to undo those 2 Allen bolts there and lower the back seat so that I can get to where I've actually got all my 12-volt stuff installed. And you might think that's a bit of a stupid way to do it, but this is a small vehicle and you need to make use of all the space that you have available on that vehicle. So we've got the KOn rack, the KOn molle cages, the KOn light cargo barrier or pet barrier or whatever it's called. Look on their website, you'll see it, it's everywhere. Got the Travel Buddy oven, and it's got the KOn mounts on that, so I could have had this down lower, and there's a reason that I wanted the oven up high, and that's because of the inverter. The inverter down the back here is a 1000 watt Renogy one. I only want 1000 watts because all I really want this inverter for is to charge my camera battery. So this is I do photography. I have 3 YouTube channels. This is just one of them. So carrying camera equipment, drones and things like that is important for what I do. So it might not be for you, so you may not need to want this up and out of the way. But for me, I do, because I put all my camera gear underneath this when I want to charge it when I'm on the road. The drawer system here is made by OffRoad Systems. Now I live quite remotely, so it's hard for me to get my head around spending a lot of money on something like this when I haven't seen it in person. And these are one of the few companies that go to lots of shows and stuff, trade events and things like that, even that aren't necessarily four-wheel drive trade shows or camping trade shows. But I saw this gear sitting at one of them at, I think it was the Man from Snowy River Festival. They had this set up there. The guy, I think he's the owner of the company, had his vehicle right there, and it was all set up. In fact, I think he even had KOn gear as well in the back of his system, which had the same drawer system. Now I've looked at a few different videos, and there's so many options for the rear fit out of your drawer system. This is kind of the heart of the back end of your vehicle. I really like what I've got going on in here. This is aluminium construction. There's 2 pieces of plywood. That's the top piece and the baseboard. Now this is the one that's specifically designed for the 76. And you might think that doesn't mean anything, but it really does. If you're going to buy a system like this for your vehicle, go on to OffRoad Systems website. I'm not affiliated at all. I bought all the stuff myself. Go onto their website, get the set that is set up for your vehicle. And what I found is, not only is this thing lightweight as, I reckon if I weighed it, it would be under 30 kilos, I reckon. Well, maybe a little bit above, but it was, 2 of us picked it up and it was nothing. Like, one of us held onto it while the other one jumped into the vehicle and just slid it in. It was easy as. You remove the front 2 tie down points, it's just 2 bolts, pull them out, put a bolt in, because the holes are already lined up perfectly to line up with that. And there are 2 rubber grommets at the back of the vehicle on the tray, so you've got to pick up the carpet a little bit, pull those grommets out, put the bolts through, and it just works. It's dead set simple, but how bloody neat does it look? It's fantastic. The system that I've got going on here is the 2 deep drawers and a table. So there's a stainless steel table here that I do all my cooking on. You can undo this drawer and this whole thing will then slide out with it as well. And the same thing at the top here. The beauty of these drawers here though, you can pull them out just a little bit more right there, and that's not going to go rolling in if you're parked on a little bit of an incline. You've got to push it a little bit to get it past that little lip, and it will go in for all the way. This here is a table that I can take out, set up and use for cooking away from the vehicle. So once I've got the awning all set up, I'm usually away from the back of the vehicle. So if I'm camping by fire and I'm cooking by fire, I'll use this table to go out there and use it for cooking on and preparing on, things like that. It's got the wings on each side. I've got nothing going on over here besides the battery space that they've made for me behind the drawers. It wasn't quite, and it wasn't, my battery's failing. Hold on a second, I was going to replace that. See how that fits in there perfectly? It's not a mistake. So the battery that I've got in here is bigger than the one I originally planned. What I have been told by the guys at OffRoad Systems, that underneath this stainless table here, you can fit one of those slimline 100 amp lithium batteries. And that's actually what I had in the vehicle before I put this system in, but I wanted a little bit more power, mainly for drone batteries. So I've got a 150 amp 8M power battery, and I ended up having to put it on the side here because it didn't quite fit. I ended up using that space for something else. Some problems that I've had with these 2 systems, one with the KOn and one with the OffRoad Systems, and both of them were so bloody easy to overcome. This is why I really like dealing with Aussie companies. Let's talk about the install quickly, and I'll explain what went wrong and how we got around it. This was a bare bones back of the vehicle. I had a set of Titan drawers in there before, you know, the Kings ones, and there's nothing wrong with Kings. I think Kings is a very, very good brand for getting people into camping and four-wheel driving. I think it's something that gives you let me explain. On my other channel, or one of the other channels, I teach astrophotography with mobile phones. So taking photos of the night sky with your phone. And my background in this is with photography and doing photography of the night sky and selling prints of those. And I used to run workshops on taking the photos of the stars, and people would say to me, Shane, aren't you worried that people are going to go and do this and then basically take your business? And I said, if people want to get out there and do what I'm doing at 2 o'clock in the morning, hats off to them, good on you. But I found that doing it with mobile phones, it was a really good way. There's better ways to do it, but it's a really, really good way of putting your foot in the water or putting your toe in the water to astrophotography before you go and spend the big bucks. Because not everybody wants to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to turn it into like a really kick-ass hobby or a way to make some dollars. Kings, I think, is a little bit like that. It's a way for people to go out and enjoy the outdoors, spend a bit of money on this accessory sport without spending a bucket load of money, just to work out if you're actually happy going and doing this sort of thing, because plenty of people aren't. Like the romantic notion of going out into the bush, into the Aussie bush, and spending some time out there lighting a fire, sitting around it and telling war stories and all the rest of it, it's not for everybody. So I think Kings has a good place in the market to maybe start your adventure into camping. So my first system was Kings. I pulled all that out and I've installed something that was just, well, quite frankly, better. It was a lot more expensive. So when I started with this, I started with a bare bones setup. There was nothing in the back here at all. So the first things that I put on was the KOn molle cages on each side, because as you can see, they're not going to be that easy to get to install them afterwards, because you do actually have to drill holes into the vehicle, into this vehicle, to mount them on the bottom. The KOn have a good YouTube channel and they can show you what I'm talking about. Go and search for 76 molle cages and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, this is where this is where the only problem came with KOn. All these switches that are here, these are the switches like for the oven, for the compressor, and for the lighting that I have, and the internal lights, like the interior lights here. So I wanted that set up from the get-go, because there's not a lot of room on the sides in this, the way that I've got the drawer set up. There's not a lot of room on the sides to install switches like this. Now I went to KOn's website, and again, Aussie company, I really like dealing with them, and it's got these little brackets here for the switches. Now these aren't cheap, these are like $110 or something for each one of these switch housings. And then I went and got the switches from Switch Boss, which is another Aussie company. Now, on their marketing collateral, it shows this exact setup, what I've got going on here, these switches that are mounted underneath this cage. What I'm going to say to you is, if you want to do this, ring them first, because what happened was these brackets didn't actually line up with the holes that are on this shelf, and I was like, what the hell? And I rang them and basically said, what the hell, guys? And they went through straight away and identified. They went back to their designers, and they came back and they went, Shane, you've got an older one, basically. They've changed the design of this a little bit so that the holes underneath it all line up with the molle stuff. This one doesn't. This is just like the one that I had in the Pajero, but these are for the molle systems, and the new ones of these they have in the molle pattern. So if you are going to do what I ended up doing, well, rephrase that, if you are going to do this, ring them when you order it and say, hey, these are going to go onto this, make sure it's going to fit. And they'll tell you if it's going to fit or not. What I ended up doing with this is putting this side in each one in the hole, because there's all holes through all this, lining that up, then drilling another hole into this cage here, front and back, and also getting some Sikaflex, putting some Sikaflex along the top here. That's not coming off, that's not vibrating off, it's not making any noise. It works perfectly, it works exactly the way that I wanted it to work. And KOn was very apologetic about it. They were really good to deal with. Again, not sponsored, bought it all myself. I'm just laying it down exactly what happened to me. I was very happy with the result. They offered to refund the money and send it all back. That I was like, well, this is what I want, so I'm just going to drill some bloody holes. But they didn't hold back. They told me exactly what was wrong. It was their stuff up, they owned it, and they were prepared to put their money where their mouth was. So hats off to you, KOn. OffRoad Systems, when this arrived, so you've got this, put it into perspective, this here was about 4 grand. It wasn't bloody cheap, but by God, it's good. It's absolutely worth every cent, I believe. I'm dealing with an Aussie company. I'm able to pick up the phone and call them. This wasn't off the shelf. So if you bought one that was off the shelf for a 76, it's probably going to be cheaper. Probably. But I asked for a few different things. Like this here was meant to be down here. It ended up being a weird shape. I asked them to put it up here. The drawers are deeper than what they should have been. So I've done a bit of customizing or they've done some customizing to this at my request. When it arrived, the bloody thing was damaged. And this is the whole dealing with an Aussie company thing. It arrived damaged. I didn't realise it had arrived damaged. It arrived, I had to go away for a week, came back then to install it. And what I noticed that something had been put on top of it. Now these guys at OffRoad Systems, they put stickers all over this thing saying don't like load anything on top, very fragile, all the rest of it. Not their fault at all, but they owned the problem, which is what I'm getting at. The Courier Company was the ones who stuffed up. They put stuff on top of this, and what happened was it bent this, because this is plywood, but everything else is aluminium, so it's very lightweight. But you can't put a lot of weight on top of it, and it actually bent the frame down here a little bit. And I contacted them, and they were awesome. They basically said, Shane, really sorry, what can we do to make it better? We can replace it, send it back, we repair it, all the rest of the things. And because it's aluminium, I was able to form it back the way it was. It's got a little very slight bow in it. The only problem with it now is that locking, where it locks all the way out. I've just got to resolve that a little bit. They've told me how to do it. It's only on the bottom one. The top one works fine. The bottom one, I've just got, because it collapsed a little bit with that bit of weight on top of it, the spring that holds it out is just bowed up a little bit. So I've just got to take that apart, put the spring down, reapply some pressure to it, or shave off the bit that activates on the spring, and it'll be fine. They did say, take some photos, send it to me, so that we've got it on record, so if this thing ever stuffs up in the future, we know what's happened and we'll get it fixed for you. Again, dealing with Aussie companies is just freaking awesome. The fridge is a 40 litre fridge, fridge freezer combo, an angle one. This fridge slide also comes standard with this kit here. I didn't want to have a drop down fridge slide. This used to sit on top of the Titan boxes, you know, the King's ones. And it was just too bloody high. When Sarah would be with me and we'd go camping, there's no way she could see it. She's only like this sort of tall, that even I had to get up onto the tow bar to see into the fridge. But this here now it's a great height for me. It's only a 40 litre because most of the time when I'm out and about in this only, I'm on my own. And 40 litres is more than enough fridge space for one person. When Sarah's with me, we usually take the horse float and use it as a bit of a camper, and in there is an 80 litre Engel. So 80 litres, 40 litres, we've got plenty of fridge space between those two vehicles. Down the side here is where I hold all my tripods. So there's only one in there at the moment because this is sitting on the other one. But when I'm filming the photography stuff, there's 2 tripods involved. One with the tripod that I'm actually using to demonstrate what I'm demonstrating, and the other one over there filming what I'm filming. There's usually another bag that comes with me for the camera stuff when I go away. There's also the drone gear that goes in there as well. Down this side here in front of this is all the tools that I keep. It's just a small toolbox for a king chrome one, automotive one, and it's done most of what I wanted to do. I'm probably going to take it out of the box of that and put it into a bag just so it packs a little bit better. I've got nothing under here at the moment, mainly because I've still got to bring the air hose through from the compressor that's in front of the fridge. Down here I've got the battery monitor, the Renogy one. So Renogy inverter switch down here, Renogy inverter switch, and Renogy battery monitor there. So the shunt is sitting in there on the front of all these drawers. I'll show you this first because someone's bound to ask. In the front here, there's a knife in here. This is a knife that I used to keep on my webbing when I was in the army. This is actually an American Air Force survival knife. It's like a K-bar but smaller. It's quite a handy knife for basically everything. I use it for a little bit of chopping stuff up when I'm cooking. Use it for or anything that you want a small knife for, cutting rope, all that sort of stuff. And I keep it right there because it's bloody handy. Down the front over this side, there's there's my other tripod. In front of that, there's a small little tomahawk, which is good for chopping up kindling. And down the side of the fridge here is a kukri, which is a type of knife. It's like a machete, if you like, and that's what I use it for. It's just like a machete, cutting down like bamboo, tall grasses, that sort of stuff when you're trying to clear a space for your camp. And that stays in there as well. All those things are reasonably easy to get to, because you don't want to be dicking around in the back of your vehicle when you're trying to clear space. Someone was bound to ask about that knife. There are a few Aussie companies that make the rear fit outs for most vehicles that are around the market today, and I went with the OffRoad Systems here. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I actually saw it, so I was able to get there, physically put my hands on it. Companies like Drifter, they're just not close to me. I think their system looks pretty bloody good. It's just not close enough to me, and there's nothing good or bad to say about other companies that are in Australia making this system. What I can say is that this company was incredibly good to deal with. It was pretty expensive, but I'm very, very happy with the bang that I got for the buck in this system. If you got anything at all from this video today, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you subscribe, you subscribe, but the like button helps to trigger this YouTube algorithm and get this video in front of other people who are considering or researching what they're doing to the back of their vehicle. And hopefully you've got something from what I've shown you here today. That's it for today. I'll catch you later.